On this episode of Made in America, I'm with my friend Darius Kania from Lynn Welding, and we're going to cover some really interesting topics. Why the American dream is alive and well in 2019, how to treat your employees super well, and what it's like to meet your dad at the age of 6 in the airport. It's really great stuff. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned. On today's episode of Made in America, I'm with Darius Kania of Lynn Welding. We know each other from the Entrepreneurs Organization, like-minded individuals just getting it done in Connecticut's economy. So I'm really happy to have you on, Darius. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Listen, Made in America podcast. So we start with the same question. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, we are a welding company. Company's Lynn Welding, and we basically provide welding services for the aerospace industry, defense markets. But you can't let the name fool you because we also have a machining department.
Okay.
So we machine some components. We fabricate components as well. But really, the core is Lynn Welding. But the machining is sort of a value-added proposition for our customers. Sometimes they'll give us a part to weld. We'll weld it, but that part needs a post-welding
secondary operation of some kind.
And that's where we take over. And over time, that's also kind of spilled into, hey, can you just make the part from scratch?
Okay.
Yeah. But still about 80% of our business is purely welding. So the customer sends in the parts, we look at them, we unpackage them, we respond to the customer, we tell them, hey, thank you for the order. We've got 20 parts. Our contract review specialist will look at the order, make sure we're capable of doing it. We send them the due date, we weld it, pack it back up and return it
out the door.
And that's our bread and butter. That's what we like doing.
So let's get into a little bit about the why, right? So, So give me the maybe background of Lynn Welding, why you guys are doing the welding you're doing. Because I know you guys aren't doing just kind of welding anything. It's high precision welding for parts that can't fail or people die. So let's talk a little bit about the background. How did Lynn Welding get to where it is and why are you guys doing what you do?
Yeah, sure. So Lynn Welding was started in 1979 by Jim and Joe Inglis, two brothers. And actually, Jim started the business first. And he was an old Pratt & Whitney welder. He was known as being one of the better welders within Pratt & Whitney.
Okay.
Back in the 70s, Pratt had this welding apprenticeship program, which was really popular back in the days. Pratt actually had their own educational facility where they would send welders, they'd train them for a year, they'd get them to Class A standards. These guys were X-ray quality welders.
That doesn't exist anymore?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jim graduated that school, worked at Pratt for a while, and he started his own business. And it slowly caught on. His first customer was Pratt & Whitney, obviously, because that's where he came from. He had some connections. And then about 1985 or 6, his brother Joe joined the business, and Joe had a machining background. So Lynn Welding became Jim, Joe, and a few welders.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2009, they built a business. They got a few more certifications. They ended up getting Hamilton Sunstrand certification at the time, Sikorsky approved, Pratt, and that was probably about it. And they were about to retire. And my father,
so they were only doing welding primarily for those 3 customers at the time?
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then my father, who came to this country in 79.
Okay.
Yeah, 79. He came to this country right when my mom was actually pregnant with me. He left. Actually, he went to Iraq. He went to Kuwait, kind of traveled the world, was sending money back to Poland. We wanted to come to America, but it was tough back then because of communism. And, how you can get to America was not as easy as it is today.
Right.
So he kind of traveled around the world, ended up in America, and started working in a machine shop, sweeping floors at night. But during his time off, he taught himself how to use the machines, how to work the equipment and things like that. And he ended up telling his supervisor one day, hey, besides sweeping, can I work on a machine?
So he's at night while he's sweeping, he's just figuring out how to work these machines.
Yeah. No one's working on that third shift. He's by himself. The lights are barely on. And he slowly taught himself how to machine. And then the supervisor said, okay, yeah, sure. You can start machining for us. Fast forward that 10 years later, he starts his own machine shop, a small machine shop, and he begins doing some parts that require welding, and he would bring them to Lynn Welding, to Jim and Joe. Okay. And they became friends. And then, they became very friendly. My dad had a very good work ethic, and they liked him. They liked what they saw in him, and they were on their way to retirement. And they approached my father one day, and they said, hey, would you be interested in buying Lynn Welding? And my dad was a very small shop. He did not have really any money, no business buying a company. Okay. But and that's what he told them. And they said, hey, don't worry. We can figure something out. We'll finance it for you. So it was really, truly the American dream.
That is the American
you come
dream.
to this country, you work hard, people see it, and they see something inside of you. And they give you that opportunity, even though you don't have the resources to get to that next level, you know? So it was incredible. And we actually owe a lot to Jim and Joe. But that's kind of how we started, or how I got involved. And actually my father owned that business for a few years, and he had a partner. So when my dad started that American Tool business, the original company,
American Tool was the business that he was doing before Lynn Welding.
Yeah, and he had a partner. And basically they ended up splitting businesses, and my dad took Lynn Welding, and the partner took the other company that my dad originally started. And then my dad was kind of like, man, I think I need some help. And he asked me if I'd be willing to help him. And at that time, I was out of college, and I started my own construction business. It was like 2008 time frame, and the recession was, in full force. No one's doing
tough to be in construction.
New kitchens, additions. I mean, I went from being very busy to no phone calls. I was dead. I had no work. My dad needs a partner. My wife was pregnant with our first baby. We've got our first home. Could barely pay the mortgage. So what do I have to lose? I said, yeah, sure, I'll join you. I'd love to. So I got on board.
And this is 2009.
2009.
Yep.
So I remember the first day I walked into Lynn Welding, I think within like 20 minutes I saw opportunity. That's just what I saw. I didn't know much about welding. I went to school for engineering, so I have an engineering degree. And I was always mechanically inclined because I grew up in my dad's shop. So I was, helping him work on machines.
Kind of in the bloodlines a little bit there.
So I had a general understanding of mechanics, stuff like that, metals. I know what aluminum was. I knew what stainless was. I knew what titanium was. And then I walked into this business and I just said, man, like you guys, really have something. I just felt like there's really something here.
Just felt it was in the air. It was kind of electric.
You knew it right away.
Yep.
And I think for like the first 5 years, I probably worked Monday through Saturday full time, and every other Sunday. I was just so driven. And the other thing is in order for my father to buy this business, he had to buy the partner out. And he also had to take some risk on his own. It's not like the thing was just 100% financed.
Right.
So he had to mortgage all the money that he had from his house. He had some equity in the home. He had to, obviously lay that on the table as a down payment. He had to cash out any savings he had in his 401k. So my dad was also really nervous.
Deep. I mean, he's all in on Lynn Welding.
All in. And, my goal, number one business goal, was not to grow the business. It was to take care of my dad and get him back to that comfortable place that he was in, prior to the purchase of Lynn Welding.
That's awesome.
Because, my dad is my hero. And I remember when I was in school in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, people would, teachers would do a little questionnaire with the students. Who's your superhero? And the kid would say Spider-Man. Some guy would say Superman. I would say it was my father, always was. And I actually remember when I was living in Poland, I never met him because he left right when I was born, a little bit before I was born. He was already gone, but he's writing me letters saying, hey, son, I'll be back for you. Hang on tight. And he would send me these photographs of him standing in this little tiny apartment that he was renting, and there was a shelf behind him full of toys. He's standing there with his arms crossed, and that's the photo that he sent me. And I had that photo under my pillow for 6 years, and I met my dad when I was actually 6 years old when I came to this country. Wow. But he was always there for us, and he really did take care of us, and that's why he was my hero. So that was the main driver. And I did have a challenge when I got to the point at Lynn Welding where we grew it. We got a little bit busier. We finally were able to get his home paid off, and he was finally saving money again. But all of a sudden, it's like the fire's gone. What's the next
What's your next purpose?
What's the purpose? And I had sort of like a mid-career crisis all of a sudden. I really did for like a year. I was
at the ripe old age of like 32.
Yeah. Like, what do I do now? But we've grown the business over the few years, and it was a challenge in the beginning because we came into Lynn Welding. I'm like this young guy. I have no experience, and I went up to every welder that they were in their 40s, 50s, some in their 60s. I shook their hand. I said, hey, my name's Darius. I'm the boss's son. I want you to know I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know much about welding, and I want you to know that I'm not going to be that son, the boss's son, who's going to come in here and tell you to do stuff. I said, I would appreciate it for the first couple of years if you guys can teach me. Wow. And that's what I did. And
I bet you that earned a lot of respect. Come in, take the kind of attitude, that learning attitude.
Not all of them.
No,
some of them were still like, get out of here. We don't want you here, you young punk. Because very quickly, the company was a great company, but it was a little bit old school. There was not too much in terms of technological innovation because it was a welding company, and the machining was really strong. But my father actually has a CNC machining background, and Lynn Welding at the time didn't have CNC at all. Machining.
So your dad's experience actually isn't even directly tied into what Lynn's primary job was at that time.
No, not at all.
Wow.
And then also, I remember very early on, I joined the ACM, and I joined a couple of
space components manufacturers,
and I started doing some trade shows. It was like the first year. I just started getting involved with these organizations, going to trade shows, trying to learn from other more successful companies and companies that I liked. And I think I told you this, but I came upon Joining Technologies.
Right.
And I met, I think it was Michael Francoeur, and then I met his son, Matt Francoeur, that was working at the time, and he invited me to see his shop, and it was really gracious and open. Made me sign the NDA, obviously, because we're a welding company. But I thought right there, I said, man, this is really cool. This guy's a welding shop. We're a welding shop, and he's going to allow me to take a tour of his facility.
Well, that speaks a lot, right, to, something that we're talking about. Not to interrupt you, we'll get back to it, but, really about building an ecosystem here in Connecticut, right? There's been a big resurgence in manufacturing. We'll talk some more about that. But, it's just so important in the ecosystem to understand that rising tide lifts all boats. We got to work together, whether it's workforce, whether it's business generation, whether it's improving the business climate, whether it's just learning and helping people grow. Because the story of Lynn Welding, even though it's a 1979 company, to some extent, it's almost like a 2000 startup, right? Where you guys got going. And so it's awesome that JT kind of had you guys out there. So what did you learn there?
Man, well, the first thing I'll never forget is the place was spotless. It was so clean. The floors were painted. It was bright. They had the laser welding room. The guys are welding these wearing these lab coats, and it just looked really impressive. And the first impression I thought was really awesome.
Yep.
So I went through the tour. I came back, and the first thing I said is, we got to clean up the shop. It's got to be clean. It's got to look like that, And I didn't even know a welding shop can look like that. And that was a challenge. Telling these guys who've been there for 25 years, who would smoke cigars while they're
welding,
while they're running the bridge ports, these old school guys. All of a sudden, I'm painting floors, I'm painting the walls, I'm putting up poster signs, no FOD, all this stuff, and they were really not having it.
No,
these guys were stuck in their ways, and it was a challenge. It took a lot of years to convince them. Guys, trust me, I'm not doing this because I want to waste money. I'm not doing this because I just think it looks cool. I'm doing this because I truly believe this is what we need to do to move forward.
Right.
And I kept reinforcing.
So how many people are working at Lynn Welding at this time you get there?
At the time, 14.
Okay.
Yeah, 14 people.
And a lot of them, and did some of those guys predate even your dad? Your dad is John, right?
Oh, yeah.
He goes,
John, yeah.
Yeah, so it was before John bought it?
All of them.
All of them. So these guys are old school Lynn Welding guys. Predate you, predate your dad. So, were you able to make the transition with these guys, or was there a turnover? Kind of how did that?
There was a little bit of turnover because there were some people that just would not take the change. And that was really hard. I learned a lot of lessons early on because I was not a manager. I didn't know how to manage, so I had to learn. And I remember there were days where I was trying to implement these changes that I thought were really positive, and these guys were just almost sabotaging me in a way, and they just weren't having it, and they were so stubborn. And I tried hard, and I really did. And
what were some of the ways you actually got them to kind of see the light, or so what are the ways that didn't work out?
You know what? When customers started visiting and they started seeing the shop, and they actually started engaging with the welders for the first time, and they said, "Hey, man, I've been coming here for a while, and you guys are really starting to, pick this place up. It's looking better and better every time I come, and all of a sudden the guys are feeling better." They're like, "All right, we see
that it works.
We're seeing it's working, know." And then that's kind of how it started. And we still have a bunch of guys with us that were there.
Okay.
In the beginning, but there's a few that just were just like they left. They were like, we're not doing this, it was just a different.
Not everybody's going to go along for the ride, right?
Yeah,
you got to find the right people.
It was a culture shock to them. That's what it was. It was a huge culture shock. And then after that, it came to salesmanship. Clean the place up. You get it polished. You want it to be presentable, and now you go out and you go for the business. I'd like to say that it was like super hard, and I'm so great at it. But the thing is, it was actually kind of easy because we were rising out of the recession,
right?
So everybody was sort of getting busier. All you had to do was, pick up the phones when people call, respond very quickly, get them a quote right away, and then follow up. And as a matter of fact,
we'll grab that in 1 second. But come on. You're telling me that all you had to do was answer the phone. How are people calling? How do people know Lynn Welding? Who's calling? What's
okay, there's obviously a little bit more to it. But what I learned early on is that, and I actually learned this from my construction days, is when you go out there and someone calls you, if you advertise, you put an advertisement out, whether it's in the phone book or on the website, or you Google AdWords, when someone calls you, you have to respond immediately. You don't even wait 20 minutes. As soon as you get that email, that RFQ, you call them up, you say, "Hey, my name is Darius. I just got your email. Just tell me about your project a little bit." They tell you about it, no problem. "Thanks for sending me the drawings." You take those drawings, you print them, you stare at them, you make a quote, and you return it in 6 hours. And that's the same thing I did in the construction business. It's the same thing we do at Lynn Welding. We've got quotes really fast, and the customers would be like, wow, it's crazy. We sent RFQs to like 4 other companies. We haven't heard from them
back at all.
It's been 3 or 4 days.
So the secret ingredient is just being polite. And responding, right? I mean, that's it.
Just respond.
Just be polite quickly, like, respond on point, treat them how you'd want to be treated.
Yeah, and I remember one of the great lessons I had very early on when I was running the construction company is that when I did get my very first phone call, when I opened, and you'll never forget your first phone call,
never.
Right?
Yep.
When you start a business. And I showed up and it was a gutter job to install gutters. And the lady's like, she shows up, she goes, wow, I can't believe you're here. I said, what do you mean you can't believe I'm here? She says, well, I called 3 other guys and they never showed up. Right there in my head, I was like, this is gonna be easy. I just have to show up. Step one, just show up.
Step one, just show up on time and they're going to love me.
So I think it's really not that hard.
So you took that kind of that mentality that you had from construction.
Right.
I mean, listen, part of it just sounds, honestly, Darius, like fire, like hustle. You know what I mean?
Well, of
you
course.
just had to will to succeed. So you're trying to turn on every opportunity, get them out there, get them in front of people.
Yeah.
And that really helped build the business.
Yeah, exactly. And our first way to get out there was also the website. So we redid a website. We did a lot of stuff with AdWords, SEO, all that organic search engine optimization.
Do you guys have a decent kind of SEM or paid search budget?
Yes, we do. Yep, we do. Okay. And I used to do it myself, and now we hired a company out in Middletown, a great company, and they take care of it for us. They take a look at our AdWords. They tell us what's working, what's not working. If we want to get a hit for like aluminum welding, we've got to the point now where if someone types in how to aluminum welding, it doesn't, our ad doesn't show up, so that guy doesn't click on it.
Right, it's the trainer guy.
That stuff. So that's what the new guy does for us. I wasn't doing that back then. But we get an RFQ. So I want to go back to our process.
Please.
So we get an RFQ. We send the guy the quote, and then I brought this box, and we send this box to the customer. And for
those of you guys listening on a podcast, we got a nice nondescript cardboard box. I'm going to open it here. Go ahead.
Yep, and obviously in the box, there would be the UPS label. And I think the key is also to send it in UPS, not US mail, because then someone's got to sign for it. It's an important package. We used to send just this quote in an envelope, and a lot of times it wouldn't get there, But if you send it into a package, and all of a sudden the guy takes it out, he's got his quote, he's got a nice letter from us.
With a little background, talks about the business, family-owned business. Yeah, kind of, so a little bit of a differentiator, but nice. Good paper too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate
it. Solid, not too flimsy. And then the quote right behind it. And then what do we got in here? We've got a, who doesn't like a nice Lynn Welding coffee tumbler?
All types of Lynn Welding swag, if you want to call it.
That's right, Lynn Welding. Nice little hat.
So here's the hat, and I think this part
shirt
is pretty cool.
Mouse pad, brochure. Wow.
Yeah. And this is for new customers, so we don't send this out for every quote because we send a lot of quotes out for existing customers. We wouldn't do this, but we get a new customer, and you can imagine there's a bunch of cubicles, and the estimator is in there, and he's the one that sent us the RFQ. Now he gets his package, and it's on his desk. He pops the hat on. He's like, "Hey guys, check this out. Lynn Welding sent me this." The project manager next to him, the cubicle, is going to pop up his head, and he's going to say, "Hey, what is that? What did they quote? Oh, they quoted that, that fuel tank for the F-16. Oh, really, Lynn Welding?" And all of a sudden, the name gets out there. And I believe like this kind of stuff really works. It's a little bit expensive, and sometimes you never hear from these people.
Right.
But more often than not, they'll call you and they say, "Hey, I got your package. Thank you very much."
And so so it's really impress them from the beginning. Just go out, go that extra mile. You're responding faster than people normally respond. Yep. You're sending a quote in a way. Most people probably email out RFQ responses. Yeah. Who knows where those go? This is really interesting. This is something you came up with on your own?
Yeah, we started this early, actually not that early, maybe a few years ago. And I actually used to do this in the construction company, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I said, wait a minute, that worked. Why don't we do that here? And we do that here. But the thing is what this really does is it tells the customer, hey, this is a different kind of a company. Yep. This is a different welding company. And all of a sudden we got our foot in the door, we're engaged, and we're remembered this way more than any of the other people that are quoting these jobs. So for us, quoting is important. Marketing is important. How you project yourself to the customer is super important. And even when we had, 15, 16 people, we had a website that you would think there was 200 people working there.
Right.
Best
foot forward and make sure that you guys look like you can get the job done, because you're not welding a desk legs, at people's home office, right? So
no, yeah, and that's exactly it. And once we got our foot in the door, the quote is there. Then we start the process. Engaging in a good conversation with the customer, figuring out what they want. A lot of times the customer will bring us sample parts. We'll weld sample parts for free. We do a lot of free services up front. Sometimes if it's a new customer, we'll offer $1,000 of free welding services. And sometimes if a customer is going to offer us or send us an RFQ for let's say an Airbus part. We're not qualified for Airbus.
Okay.
We're certified for a lot of aerospace primes, but we're not certified for Airbus. If someone sends us an Airbus RFQ, we don't reject it and we say, hey, we're not certified. Sorry, we can't quote it. We actually quote it and we'll say, hey, we'll give you $25,000 of free welding services if you help us get Airbus certified. Because $25,000 is actually cheap for an approval, because that approval can last a lifetime.
Sure.
And all these other customers out there that are doing Airbus work will now look for you.
So how many approvals you guys have right now at Lynn Welding? You started with just 3, I think.
Just
you mentioned
3.
Hamilton,
I think
Sikorsky, and Pratt.
I haven't counted. I want to say maybe around 15. I mean, now we're doing Raytheon, General Electric, Honeywell, United Launch Alliance,
Bell Helicopter,
Boeing,
I think
Bell.
I saw. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much every major aerospace prime out there, with the exception of Airbus and Safran and some of the European companies. And at this point, we've got about 230 customers. Last year, we had 230 customers, and we shipped about 165,000 parts.
Wow.
Today we're at 65 employees, roughly.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, we're at about 65.
So over the last decade, we went from about 14 to 65. So that's substantial.
It's substantial
growth.
but it's not crazy. And it was slow and controlled. So what we would do is we knew when we had only 14 employees, we could only do so much. So we would take a little bit more than we can handle, and then we'd hire 1 or 2 more.
Right.
And all of a sudden, our capacity opens up.
Sure.
Now we take on a little bit more work, and then when we get a little bit crazy, we hire 2 or 3 more.
Right.
And we sort of built up that way over time. But we love welding. The people that work at our company, they are people that decided not to go to school and be lawyers. They decided not to, like our skilled tradespeople. These are guys that love welding, that love mechanics. That a lot of our employees have cars. They're in car clubs. They love working on projects on the side.
So going back to almost like your dad's experience, your experience, these are mechanically inclined people. That you guys are you guys training folks to weld, or they're coming in kind of pre-trained? How does that? You guys have an apprenticeship program?
Both. We do both. So we do have ads out there looking for welders, and what we look for is someone with experience. But a lot of times, the people that come in with experience that are not employed, there's usually something wrong. Because if there's a really good welder out there that's not working, I mean, welders are hard to find, and they're in high demand.
High demand, sure.
And they're being taken care of very well by their employers. So sometimes we'll get lucky. What's happened to us recently is some of these smaller companies around here are getting bought out by larger corporations,
and they don't like it.
And I don't know why these corporations do this, but when they come in, it's never made sense to me. And I guess I understand, but it doesn't work for me. Is that they'll buy out a small company and they'll start taking things away from the existing employees. Hey, we're going to cut down on the vacation. Maybe we're going to cut down on the OT.
Change the bonus program.
And people start leaving. And so the past couple employees that we've hired, skilled welders, came actually from corporations, from small companies that were bought out by corporations. So that's been really beneficial. But what's great is when they come in, they sit down in our shop, and like in the first day, they're just like, holy crap, we didn't know that a business out there, a welding shop, existed like this. This is awesome. Like, we've got a great environment.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a big thing that we like to talk about in the Made in America podcast is recruiting and retention.
Yep.
So you touched on how hard, welders are to find. And I think that's, whether it's welders or CNC machine operators or tool and die makers, right? There's a lot of opportunity and jobs that are hard to fill. So talk a little bit about, what Lynn Welding is doing to attract employees and to retain them. You were kind of going there, but let's kind of get right into there. So, do you guys have a swag bag for recruiting? Maybe that's an idea.
When we hire someone, they get the same package.
They get the same package.
Yep, they get the same package. Nice. We've got this culture book. So when we hire someone, we actually have this. It's an employee handbook, but it's kind of a graphic culture book. And there's just photos. You'll see a photo of me sweeping in the shop.
Is there an online copy of that, by the way, or is it only hard copy?
No, I actually have to upload that to the website.
Because we should, because if we did, I'd link it here. So I've actually seen it before. I was so impressed with it. It's such a great way. I mean, listen, especially when you're NADCAP certified, ISO certified, you've got all the tight restrictions that you have for aerospace parts and quality control and all that stuff, which I know we're going to talk about. So you've got to have certain things you got to get out there, right? And there's just general business stuff. But I think, when you find a new and a fresh way to get people the information they need, but do it kind of in a positive way, that culture book, I don't know if it's hard to describe maybe, but maybe you could just talk about, the inspiration behind it and kind of how it works.
Well, the culture book is just fun. It just has a lot of photos of our employees doing their jobs.
That's right.
And there's like these messages in the culture book, like, we're all on the same level. And that's why you'll see a photograph of me in there sweeping the floors.
Yep.
Because that's what I do. We are all at Lynn Welding, we're all on the same level, 100%. We don't have this hierarchy system where, the boss sits, on his desk with his feet up, and while everybody's working hard, it's a total group effort.
Right.
That's something that we drive into the culture book. And so our new employees, when they come in and go through this orientation, we give them this book, they look at it like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. We've heard this before, but then they start, and then I'll see them in a week. I'm like, hey, how do you like Lynn Welding? And I love hearing it. They all say, they're like, man, I had no idea that you can work in this kind of an environment. If I had known, I would have left that other place 10 years ago. And that feels awesome, and we really don't lose a lot of people. Very rare. What sometimes is pretty interesting, the people that we sometimes have had quit, and it doesn't happen often, it's probably happened maybe 3 or 4 times in the past 5 years, are the younger guys that we trained internally.
Really?
Because they've only known Lynn Welding.
Oh, the grass might be greener.
So we had like this one guy, I was an awesome guy, and I liked him so much, and he said he's leaving and he wanted to go work at this 3D printing company, this additive manufacturing company, because he just wants to expand his horizons. He wants to learn different technologies.
Sure.
He loves welding, but he doesn't know where he wants to end up.
Sure.
That's what he said to me. I said, okay, no problem. I said, but you have to know, if you do make this decision, you can't come back, because we have this policy. Because if you do come back, then it's going to tell everybody else, you can just jump ship and come back, and if it doesn't work out.
Right.
So the funny thing is, he came back in 6 months, and he's like, I hate it. He's like, I want to go back to Lynn Welding. I mean, this is great. I mean, we do bonus structures. I mean, we give guys random bonuses. We help them out with.
Well, you guys have the report card that.
The performance report cards or performance review cards comes out monthly. It's a nice way to give feedback, because now that we have like close to roughly 65 employees, you can't sit down with each employee and say, how'd you do this month? So we give them these report cards and says, hey, here's your on-time punch-in. Every day, if everybody punched in before 7 and after 3:30, it shows all 5s.
Right.
Output. How was your output? How was your quality? All that. If everything's all 5s, then these guys are getting bonuses, and
spot bonuses every month.
Bonuses.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Not every month. We break it down usually in quarterly, but it's just every quarter we'll say, okay, this group of people are getting bonuses. Then the next quarter, and so on. And it's funny, when this guy came back from this company, he's like, man, it just wasn't like that there. They threw me at the machine. They just
get going.
Press that button.
Make something happen.
And we took him back.
You did.
Because you know what? I broke the rule for this guy because I like him. And I think that he has a lot of value, and he just he just needed to learn a lesson.
That's a big part of entrepreneurship, right? Is understanding that you got to have rules and guidelines and rules of the road, but you also got to know when it's time to break a rule.
Exactly.
And rules are made to be broken a little bit.
He's been with us for the past 2.5 years now, and there's no issue.
After the 6 month hiatus. Yeah. So can we just go back for 1 second? Because I think there's something to really learn here in that report card. It's something you shared with me that I was blown away by, because I think, what culture's great, and a swag bag with a hat and shirt and mouse pad and a coffee cup. That's all good stuff. And, we've talked about before, parties and lunches and happy hours and all that stuff is great. But I think what people really crave is the opportunity to grow in their career, contribute to something that's greater than themselves, do work that they know is meaningful and has an output that's something, important, and get feedback on a regular basis. And, Lynn Welding, I think, checks all those boxes. We had talked about a little bit pre-show that, you guys are going to do a bus up to an air show in Massachusetts, where they're going to have some of the fighter jets that you guys have actually welded parts that you can see, and do a little scavenger hunt. How many Lynn welds can you find, on this stuff, which is like super cool. And I think that's going to connect people past the welding, past the culture, to like, holy shit, the thing I'm doing is keeping this country safe, is keeping these pilots safe. That's so powerful.
It's really important.
Yeah. So sorry to go so long on that, but just go back to the report card, because what a great way to give people objective, consistent, constant feedback for them to grow. So just talk how you developed it, what's scored on it. I mean, it's really cool. It actually reminds me, to be honest, of the size of a report card from school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we base it on a couple of different things. One of them is output. So how many parts are they making per week? How many parts are they welding or machining or grinding, guys, if they have to buff parts or clean parts? And the thing is we're not out there like, cracking the whip and saying you need to make 100 parts. We just know that if we got this one particular job that we do all the time, roughly you can weld about 30 parts a week. And if the guy's making 30 parts a week, we're happy. If it's like 15, we'll just throw a little note in there. Hey, was there anything wrong? We noticed last week that you're a little bit low on the output. Do you need new tools, fixturing, anything like that? Because this card it's a positive thing. It's never like, hey, you did a horrible job. Come see me in the office. It's just feedback, whether it's good or bad. But even if there's something bad going on, it's just kind of like come talk to us. We want you to do better because we want everybody to succeed. If they succeed, the company succeeds, and the customer
So the great part about how you've been able to do the report card is you've put on there metrics, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I saw was metrics that, number one, make sure everyone in the company is rowing in the same direction without Darius having to be on top of them, or Ibrahim, your general ops manager, to be on top of everybody. We know what we have to do. And I'm giving you feedback every month on, are you doing what you're expected to do? Yeah. And then if you do what you're expected to do, I give you a little bonus, right? So it's kind of a little more of a carrot approach, encouraging you to do more and letting you know, doing a great job, man. Just keep it up.
People, they look forward to it. And they look at it. We hand them out with paychecks, every first of the month, and you can see everybody looking at it, and they're like, well, all right, so how am I looking this month? It's powerful. So that's like something that we'll do. And but back to like employee retention.
Sure.
It's a family business, and I think that's important. And it does get a little more challenging when you have more employees, because when we're at 14, 15, 16, 20 employees, I had like this little book, and I would say, okay, Tom did a real awesome job. I'm going to give him $1,000 this month, or whatever the case may be. And as we're getting a little bit bigger, it's tough to do, but we're still trying to, as much as we can, maintain good, close personal connections with all of our employees. I know who's having babies. I know who's getting married. I know whose grandchildren are born, the whole nine. If that happens, it's like, hey, here's a $500 certificate for your grandkids to put into their savings, or whatever the case may be. We do a lot of stuff like that. We're very personally involved with all our people. We care about our people. We had we have this welding foreman. His name is Eric. Eric's awesome. He's a great guy. He's been with us for a long time. He's driven. He's helped us so many times. And like 2 years ago, he had this issue and kidney stones. He thought he was going to have them for like a week. He'd be out. He ended up being out for like 5-6 weeks. Took longer to recover. We paid for his whole time off. We covered all his medical expenses, and we took care of him. So his wife didn't have to worry, where's the income coming from while he's while he's recuperating. And that's kind of what makes Lynn Welding really a great company.
Listen, those types of investments pay off long term.
They pay off, and what we're doing is we're really just paying back. It's our way of saying thank you, because you can pay anyone that market value that they're worth, but giving them that extra thank you and taking care of them when they're having hard times is priceless. And that's what makes me the happiest, without a doubt, at Lynn Welding. I mean, getting a new customer is exciting. A lot of these things can be exciting, but when you have someone who started at $12 an hour 2 years ago, and now they're at 28, and they're buying their first house, which is happening to some of our guys now, I almost want to cry. I love it. I'm like, that's why we're here. That's what Lynn Welding is all about, because we're really, honestly, we're not a customer-focused company. We're an employee-focused company.
So do you think that, and kind of circling back to kind of your start, I mean, I don't know that many people can kind of relate to having a dad who's not around for the first 6 years of life, and just kind of knowing him through letters and knowing him through pictures and kind of longing for the day where you guys can be together. Do you think that background and sort of having to go through that in your life and having to work, see that, did that help you kind of with this type of attitude to appreciate what you have a little more than some might?
To be totally honest with you, I have not ever thought about it that way, but I would say absolutely. Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, definitely.
now that I'm connecting dots.
Yeah.
So just because I'm interested, and it's not super on point for manufacturing, but it's really cool to me to see immigrant family done so well. So many stories that we've had in our own families. People that came here with little to nothing. Yeah. So just talk a little bit about that kind of process. How did you and your mom get from Poland, to America? And
sure.
Kind of all that.
Again, my father was traveling the world making money, and he was taking whatever he needed for himself, the bare minimum to pay for the apartment, pay for the food he kept, and then everything went back to us. And we had to buy our way out of Poland. It was a communist era, and we ended up saving enough money to get out, and we had to live in Austria for, I want to say it was like maybe 3 or 6 months, and we were living in like this, literally like a refugee camp. It was like a tent city, bunch of tents surrounded by this hotel. I was 5 at the time. I don't remember why it was set up that way, but that's the way it was. You'd shower in this hotel. You'd go hang outside all day. Some people were in tents. Some people were lucky enough to be inside this hotel. It kind of went back and forth. We spent some time there, and then we finally came to this country, and my dad picked us up at the airport, and it was awesome.
Was that when you met your dad at the airport?
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember actually, the one thing I remember is being in Austria, getting on the plane to America. Yeah. It was a Pan Am 747. And this was back in the days when you got to walk on the tarmac and walk up the stairs to get it. This thing was massive. It was the first time I ever saw a plane. And I was scared. I started running the other way. I said, Mom, I'm not going on this thing. I was so scared, And then my mom was like, no, we have to go. We're leaving.
We're not going back to the tent city.
But then, yeah, we ended up in America. And,
so you flew from Austria straight to what, New York?
Straight to JFK.
Wow.
My dad picked us up. We came back to this little apartment in New Bern. My dad had like 2 other roommates at the time, so I think we were all sharing a room, or maybe there was 1 extra room for me, and my mom and dad had a room, and another roommate or 2 had a room. And then we were just working hard.
What was that like seeing your dad? Do you remember it?
I remember all of it. It was
you're not coming off the jetway in JFK, right? You're probably, you're not coming off onto the tarmac, doing a jetway.
It was walking through the gate, and he was there, and I was kind of like seeing Santa Claus, sort of. When you're a kid and you see Santa Claus at the mall, you just run towards him. That's what it felt like, and I remember it. And it was like an instant, it's just, that's your dad, and here you are. And here's your new opportunity. Here's the world. Here's this place he brought you. And it's fresh, it's new, and there's opportunity, And being in this country, I think that, we know that this company's built on immigrants. It's always been like that, right? Yeah. And I love it. And we actually try to hire people like that. I was actually over at an immigration office about 2 weeks ago in Hartford. We were supporting one of our employees who's going for citizenship, and I went there to sponsor him and be there in case I was asked to come up to answer any questions. And I remember I'm sitting in this waiting room, and it reminded me of myself when I was a kid. There was a 6-year-old boy with his father and the wife. And the father got called up, go through this room to go for some kind of questioning to become a citizen. And I remember seeing this 6-year-old boy saying, "Hey, I love you, Dad. Good luck." And the mom was there. "Good luck, good luck." And actually, while he was in there, I approached the mom and I gave her my business card and I said, "Hey, if your husband's looking for a job, make sure you call up Lynn Welding, because I will hire that guy. And I don't care if
figure out what to do after that.
And we'll figure it out. And that's probably the best thing about our company is we offer opportunities for our employees. And I love it.
Fantastic.
And then if your employees are happy, your customers are going to be happy.
Absolutely.
That's the byproduct.
That is the byproduct.
And sometimes
happy employees, better throughput, better quality, better everything.
Yeah.
And customers get serviced.
Exactly. And sometimes I've been in larger corporations where they're very customer focused, and you find that they're very successful, they're profitable, they're large corporations, but the employees are being stepped on to meet the customer happiness requirements, and so there's a negative atmosphere. It's not a positive working environment.
Look, that's just not long-term sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, at some point that's gonna bite you in the butt, because the only way to keep unhappy people around is keep trying to throw money at them, and that's a very short-term fix.
Exactly.
And eventually you're paying a ton, so now you have to raise prices. You're in that death spiral.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you guys have a lot. Haven't been over there. I know there's a lot of U.S. citizens over there, but it does have a pretty healthy immigrant population, or that works at Lynn Welding. And is that just sort of because people know people, and that's kind of how it's worked
exactly.
out?
We're very diverse. We've got a lot of different people from different origins, different countries. We also have a program with CCSU for an internship program. So we had a lot of international students that would come work at Lynn Welding, and we'd start them off in our commercial business, obviously, because there's ITAR restrictions and things like that. But then once they decide they want to work with us, if they're going for a green card, we sponsor them. We get their green card. We help them get their green card, and then we foster them. We help them grow, and then once they get their citizenship, they still have the choice now. They can go or stay.
Yeah.
And they tend to stay.
That's good.
Which is nice.
That is nice. That is nice.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. I hate to keep coming back to it, but I'm just so proud of you.
Problem. I'm happy
and what your family's done. You guys really represent, the historical kind of immigrants that built this country. You guys are just kind of the next family in that generation, and family succeeded. You succeeded. You and your wife just built a house. You got some great kids. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about investment. So, I always like to I know that businesses have to make decisions, right?
Sure.
And you have, when you're in manufacturing in particular, you can invest in the people, which is a critical thing.
Yeah.
You got to invest in machinery. Then there's technology, whether it's ERP or IT, if your ITAR security requirements and all that. So when Lynn Welding's looking at their limited, and marketing, by the way, because we talked about SEO, when you guys look at your pool of resources and try and figure out where should we invest this year, how do you guys do that? What's your thought process that you guys go through to figure out, I think you guys bought a 5-axis CNC, 3-axis CNC?
No, all of our axes are 3 and 4,
okay.
for CNCs, but we just bought a robotic cell not too long ago. It's a 6-axis robot. Thing is It's difficult. You have to invest in the equipment first.
Yep.
For us, because we're a job shop, we don't have LTAs, long-term agreements and contracts, so we have to take a risk. You can't, we want to get into robotic welding, for example, so we bought a robotic welder, but we didn't have the business because because the only other way you can do it is you can advertise, hey, robotic welding services, but then they're going to give you parts and you don't have a robot, right? And it takes 18 weeks to get a robot.
Sure.
So you got to get the robot
and
first.
You got to people trained on it.
You got to train on it. Yeah, exactly. So we right now we've got one TIG welding robot for our aerospace components. And we actually found that originally we wanted to run more complex parts on it. And we found it actually difficult because a lot of the aerospace parts, they're sheet metal, they're tube assemblies. And when you put these things together, there's little gaps. And there shouldn't be gaps when you're welding. You want good finished machined components. They hold together tight.
Right.
The tolerances are perfect. And then you can repetitively weld this all day long. But with a lot of the aerospace parts that we're welding more complicated parts, a smaller volume. And a lot of times there's custom fit up on every part's a little bit different. And the robot is kind of stupid. It doesn't know there's a gap. It doesn't know to slow down. And now you have to start weaving to close the gap instead of a straight weld. So we actually started using the robot in a lot of the simpler jobs that we have.
Just kind of the more repetitive.
Yeah, we've got a lot of jobs where it's thousands of pieces per month. And it's a couple of tack welds or very, very straightforward circumferential welds. So we actually ended up using the robot for really easy type of parts. But it ended up freeing up capacity for highly skilled welders to work on the more complex stuff that the robot really is not that good at.
Sure.
And I mean, there's technology out there where they get these.
What does a 6-axis welding robot cost?
It's about $250,000. Yeah, and that's for the stupid one. Because they've got the ones with the vision systems, and then a robot with a vision system can see a gap coming up, and it can slow down. But the programming that thing is a nightmare. It's not repeatable, and unless you're doing hundreds of thousands of parts, it's not worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, we also have a robotic spot welder. We do a lot of work in the firearms industry as well. We're welding about 100,000 of these machine gun receiver bodies per year, so we automated that as well. And it's actually funny because in that particular case, the customer paid for the entire equipment, which is almost $750,000 investment.
Wow.
So that's nice. We got lucky because that doesn't happen too often, but the customer approached us. We've done a little bit of business with them in the past, and they said, hey, would you be willing to do this job for us? And I looked at it, and I looked at the quantity. I said, the only way this can be done is it's got to be automated. And they said, okay, well, we'll buy it for you. Said, okay, great.
Sold.
Nice.
That's not too bad.
Yep.
So when you're looking at a robot, like what is it just kind of your gut that you're looking at going, I think this robot's going to work for us? That's it? It's gut, Darius's gut?
Well, we have other parts that we know we can throw on the robot, right?
Sure.
So we know that, but it's not enough to keep the robot busy full time. But we got the robot.
You figure if we can get this thing 20-30% busy,
exactly,
I can find the other 70%.
It's being utilized right now about 20-30%.
Okay.
But now we're beginning to advertise robotic welding services, and we're starting to get feedback. We're starting to get RFQs. We're starting to look at those parts. So I think it's going to work out, and I can definitely see us in the next 16 months buying another unit just like it.
Wow, that's great. So you guys have the Newington location, right?
Newington, yeah.
So let's talk about, because you guys have 2 spots right now.
2 locations in Newington, yeah. So when we started, when I got there in 2009, it was 1 building. It was like 14,000 square feet. And then in around 2012, we added 5,000 square feet to that building. And we couldn't add any more just because of the amount of land we had in the zoning. And we've been getting busier and busier every year. So we ended up leasing another 5,000 square feet on the same street as us. It's an industrial cul-de-sac. So we're in the back there. So we ended up moving all of our certified gas tungsten arc welding, TIG welding into that new building, which is really nice. And what's been an awesome exercise for us is we decided to treat that building as its own independent business unit. And we sort of did an experiment, and we said, can we get this place to work without us being there? Like if we just pop in once or twice a week, can we get it to work? And that's sort of our next phase is we want to definitely branch out our company. We'd like to maybe start up a location in Florida where there's a lot of activity, maybe in California, Arizona, or South Carolina. But we can't do that unless we know that we can, run a business remotely. So this new 5,000 square foot facility is our little experiment, and it's actually going really well. We figured out a way to tell our production manager, they need to hit this minimum number of sales volume every week. And if you do that, then that sales volume is covering the rent. It's getting us the profit that we need to invest.
So you're trying to get them so independent that they're doing their own sales and marketing, or
except for the sales and marketing, that's still done under the umbrella.
Perfect. Perfect.
But everything else, from inspection to receiving to shipping, it's being done totally independently, and it's really nice. Everybody in that building is doing a great job.
What are you guys doing? So you're kind of pretending it's far away, right? Where it's not. So you have the
exactly.
So I mean, what steps have you taken to try and transfer the Lynn Welding culture. You know, the culture book's a living document, but which you and wonderful document, but a document isn't going to coach people. A document isn't going to bring the culture to life. So what techniques are you guys using to have that independent entity kind of have the same culture that's made Lynn Welding successful so far?
Well, what's really important is that we've got a lot of people working in that new building that were working in the old building. So they've already gone through that process of learning what Lynn Welding is all about.
Transfer the culture with the people.
Yeah. So it's very important that those guys are there. And our training is really important. You know, we don't just train on how to weld or how to set up a part. We train how to talk to each other. We actually train best communication methods. We train how to deal with conflict, and we train how to talk to even customers and what kind of sentence format and structure should you use. So
really,
yeah, it's all part of our culture. It's even how we talk to our customer and how we talk to each other. We want simple, clear, concise statements of what the issue is. Right. So it's pretty interesting. For an example,
who does that training?
I do. Abraham does, our operations manager. Yeah. It's another awesome story. I mean, he was a CCSU intern 9 years ago or 8 years ago, and today he's our operations manager. Yep. So that's the beautiful thing about Lynn Welding. But yeah, you know, what's interesting is we all have to think the same way. We have to talk the same way. We have to act the same way. And it's and when you hire new people, they do come from other places. They're not used to it. And like our welding foreman in that building, he's been with us for 10 years. He's definitely like, hey, welcome to Lynn Welding, and here's how it's done here.
That's awesome.
And he makes sure that the culture keeps on moving. But even with like our communication methods, it's pretty interesting because what we're really good at is communicating to the customers. I'm kind of going off topic.
No, please, please.
To you. When you hire someone new, they have a different way of talking to a customer, right? So if we get a new engineer and he's just started a few weeks ago and we say, hey, Tom, can you please tell the customer that we received their parts and they're dented? The customer might just say, hey, we received your parts and they're dented, you know? And the customer gets frustrated. They're like, what are you talking about? What's the PO number? What's the part number? So we actually train our people, like, first off, photograph has to be in the body of the email. We want Microsoft Paint arrow pointing at the dent. We want the PO number, the part number, and we want no paragraphs, no sentences, bullet points, easy to read.
Yep.
Step by step, you know, and it's pretty cool, and it works well. And some of the people that we hire that are new, they actually appreciate it because they're like, yeah, I know I'm not really good at communicating. It's not my thing, you know. And we're like, hey, we're gonna make it.
Don't worry, you don't have to write War and Peace here. We're gonna keep this nice and easy.
Nice and simple.
Pictures,
for you, you know?
Yeah. Wow, so, that's really smart.
Yeah, we're really good at the customer communication thing. I also think that that's an innovation. So when you're asking about innovation beside and investments inside of technologies and things like that, there's other innovations that you can do and investments that cost time, but it's not hardware. It's training. You know, and training is really important.
It's so funny. What got you there? Because I mean, we always talk about it kind of in our business, right? That training's so important, right? Because, you know, in the IT business, you can give them whatever IT, just like you can give everyone whatever hardware you want to give them. But if no one knows how to use it, or no one knows how to use it well, you either get no return on the investment or you don't get the maximum ROI because you're not really using it correctly, right? It's like, you know, the old saying, right? If you give a Ferrari to a 5-year-old, it's gonna have a car accident. You give a Ferrari to Mario Andretti, you're winning some races.
Exactly.
So, you know, so how do you, what made you realize that, and how do you kind of actuate that training?
Yeah. Well, you know what, we realized that just learning through mistakes, really, you know, because we would send those emails where it wouldn't be so detailed. Or what would happen, the wrong person is sending the email. And that's another thing that we've trained on. We go through roles at least once a year and sometimes twice a year because we're constantly shifting, we're changing roles. And if we change one person's role, if we promote one guy from an engineer to production manager, all the other roles have to kind of shift,
right?
To compensate. And we actually sit down with everyone and we tell them, here's your new role. So sometimes what happens is a customer will email everyone in the company and say, hey, I want to know the status of this part. And the customer will CC, you know, 15 of us.
Right.
And what would happen in the past is, you know, 3 different people would respond with 3 different answers. And it's frustrating to the customer because no one knew. The production manager is the only person who's in charge of the production schedule. Therefore, that's the only person that should respond.
Who knows all the different pieces, who can actually answer correctly and completely.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes, like, an engineer would, just because he's on the email and he just wants to help. He wants to take care of the customer.
No malice.
It's like, sir, you know, it's going to be ready tomorrow. But what he doesn't know is the production manager is maybe waiting on wire or certain fixture or something like that. So we've gotten that training down really well. And every time someone does kind of step on someone's toes and maybe take over a task that they shouldn't, we talk to them. Like, hey, don't forget, you know, leave that to Paul because
he's the one that knows what's going on.
He really knows better than all of us.
Sure.
So that's a big part of it. Internal training, investment in training is huge.
How often do you guys do kind of personnel training? Do you guys have a standard timing?
Very often, because we're making changes all the time. So every time we make a change, we can't make a change and just expect everybody to know what the hell's going on.
Right.
And people get freaked out. There's this
Absolutely.
new robot. We have to train everybody. Why do we have this new robot? You know, there's some people are sitting there going,
is that my job?
Yeah. Or why is there a robot? We don't have work for it. It doesn't make sense. You know, why would they buy a robot and it's sitting there idle? So before any of those questions, and sometimes even a little bit of negativity can come into the atmosphere, because sometimes people, they just get kind of frustrated and they think that maybe we're not making the right decisions. The thing is, you got to sit down with them and explain to them, hey, listen, we got this robot because there's an opportunity around the corner, and if we have the robot, we can get the opportunity. But if we don't have the robot, we're stuck in the water. But if we get that opportunity, the business grows and you grow as well. And then all of a sudden they're on board with the robot. So that's really important. So we train often, we talk often. They know what our plan is. We're very open. Our newsletters are once a month. It says how many quotes we did last month. What's our new business? What type of new customers came in? What were our audit results? Why did we buy the robot? You know, all kinds of things.
Always
like
sharing all that information.
Oh yeah, yep. Very important.
That's super important. It's a really solid business you guys are running over there. What do you think kind of drives you to succeed? And I mean, you talked about your dad, right? And kind of coming in and saying you need to help your dad kind of get the house paid off and get back out what he had put in and kind of get all out. So then we talked a little bit. We never really got to it. You said, well, then you achieved that. Yeah. So now what? So what is the now what?
So now it's kind of funny. It's to be the world's best welding company. Okay. And when you say that as a general statement, it's like, okay, yeah, what does that mean? That sounds crazy and stuff like that. But really what that means is to be the most well-known. So through our marketing, we want to be the most well-known welding company out there. We want to be the most reliable. We want to have the best quality, and we want to have the best pricing. So that's what we're working towards right now. There's a lot of steps there.
Yeah, there is.
There is. But I feel, again, like it's not that hard if you just break it down into smaller little groups and you achieve one at a time. Where we've gotten, really good as the most well-known is we're doing a lot of trade shows now. Our advertising is all over the place, stuff like this. We've got vans all over the state. We pick up and deliver in 2 different vans. We're just very involved in any type of industry event that we can be in. And we're slowly starting to get known. We've got customers coming from California, from Canada, from all over the place where, 2 or 3 years ago, our business was only more in Connecticut. So we're getting more well-known. In terms of being reliable, we're doing an awesome job at that because, we have 65 employees and it's a high number of employees. But at the same time, we moved 160,000 parts last year, right? So there's a lot of hands-on that's needed. So absolutely, the reason we're reliable, when a part gets delivered to our company, it comes in UPS or it gets delivered in freight, and it could be 1,000 parts, and it could be jet engine parts, could be missile parts, could be military parts. We are so good at telling the customer, hey, we got your parts. And we snap a photo of the parts being received, and we'll email them the photo, be like, hey, here's your parts. Within 24 hours of receiving the parts, our customer review specialist goes through the contract, goes through the purchase order, responds to them, verifying the pricing. Here's the shipping method. Here's the shipping number. It's your account number, not ours, UPS number, all that. And then it says in 24 hours, our production manager will alert you of the delivery date. 24 hours later, the production manager sends them, hey, I'm just picking up from where Tyler left off. I got you in the schedule, and here's when your parts are going to get delivered. While we're welding the parts, we send in-process photos, in-process videos to the customer of the parts being welded.
Taking advantage of modern technology.
Oh,
right here,
yeah.
right?
Oh, for sure. Innovation, and you can innovate in a lot of different ways. And welding is kind of an old business. And in the beginning, I had a hard time trying to figure out how can we innovate when welding. But it's kind of just innovate through customer service sometimes. Right. It's nice. Because
like you said, the little things really matter. Giving those people the touches, let them know you're going that kind of extra mile and making that happen and delivering on quality products on time, every time.
On time, our pricing is competitive. And what's nice is sometimes we do run into some snags where we're going to be late. Maybe we realize
nobody's perfect.
Yeah, the fixture might not work out that well. They sent us or whatever. There's a million reasons. But the thing is, it's nice that we're always in contact with our customers. So if their part is due 2 weeks from today, but we see an issue today, we tell them today.
Right.
Hey, we don't wait till 2 weeks and the customer's waiting at the dock for their parts. Where's my parts? And then you tell them, oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you it's on hold because we're making the fixture.
Right.
I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of the other companies out there for service-based for welding, because it's a very fragmented market. Yeah. There are hundreds of welding companies out there.
So let's talk about that. It's a big market. How do you see kind of the macroeconomic trends, the big things that are happening in Connecticut vis-a-vis manufacturing? How are those impacting Lynn Welding at all? I mean, you guys, how much of that is impacting you guys, and what do you see about it?
The thing is that at Lynn Welding, we're still staying really true to the simple welding requirements that people will have for the next 100 years.
Right.
Welding will always be required. So we just continue focusing on being the best welding company, period. And there's all these other trends going around us for all kinds of technologies, implementations, and things like that. But welding is going to be needed for a long time, and that's the way I look at it. That's the way we look at it, and we just have to become really good at doing it. Because it will be here for many, many years.
So myopic focus on the welding, and whatever happens around you, that's happening around you. There'll be good things, there'll be bad things. But if you focus on being the best welding company in the world,
yep,
good things are going to happen. Yeah. So have you developed a personal passion for welding specifically? The customers? Is it just the challenge of doing it?
No, I think it's cool. I love it. I love welding. But what I love more is again, taking care of our employees and our customers. And it does feel good when a customer calls you up, and we get a lot of phone calls. We get a lot of positive phone calls and positive emails from our customers. And when we get those, we share them with everyone. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm not so much passionate about welding. I think it's cool, and I know enough about it to discuss with the customer if we're quoting a job and can we do it and can we not. But the guys that are passionate about it are our welders, and they are where they belong within our business. They're providing that service.
They're really doing.
They're passionate about it. I'm more passionate about making sure that the business is sustained, that everybody's comfortable, and that our customers are happy.
That's awesome. So what do you see in the next couple of years for Lynn Welding? What are some of the challenges you want to overcome? What are some of the new horizons you're looking to conquer?
I honestly think that, what keeps me up at night is the recession. The recession's coming. It's been too good for too long. And every year what we're doing is we're adding staff, we're adding equipment, we're building, we're adding additions, right?
Yep.
We're leasing new buildings.
New buildings, sure.
So we're basically adding a ton of overhead, more costs.
Yep.
And the fear is always, when that recession comes, how hard is it going to hit? Is it going to be, 6 months? Is it going to be a year before all this?
And how deep is that 6 months or a year going to go?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that is probably what we're working on for the next couple of years is we're trying to get more customers. That's what it comes down to.
Drive the business. Give yourself a bigger cushion.
Keep going. But
then,
as hard as you can.
So let's talk, so you go hard on that, but then you kind of run into this other problem, right? So you go for more customers, you get more customers. Now you need another machine. You maybe need some more space.
Yep.
So you make the overhead. So it's funny. This is a really interesting topic.
It's an interesting thing.
So what, how do you, go with the, I've been thinking about this myself, right? And do you just kind of run through the finish line and hope that the cream rises to the top and sure, something's going to happen, but hopefully if we're doing our job and being the best we can be, we'll ride it out okay. Because the danger is you don't invest and it comes later or it doesn't happen and then you lose some of the business and then you have a hard time getting it back. So
it's honestly a risk. Yep. That's what it is at the end of the day, because no one really knows, but if you don't do anything, what's going to happen.
That's right.
Nothing. Right.
That's right.
So you have to do something.
Growing or dying though, right?
The question is, what are you going to do when you wake up in the morning? Are you going to come into work and just do the same job and go home and it's the same mundane, repetitive task every day, living your life the way that you're just living it? Or do you want to make every day better? Right. And that's the way we look at our business philosophy. Every day we want to make it better for our employees. We're still investing in things that will make them better at their jobs. We're still looking for new customers. We're going to need another robot. Then we're going to need another building. We're going to buy it, but the thing is it's a risk. I mean, it is. And
it's life.
But at the same time, we like to keep cash in the bank. We don't have any debt. We own all our properties now, except for the building that we lease, but it's not that much. It's $3,500 a month. We can swing that in the worst of times. And we save a lot of our money. So at the end of the year, after everything gets paid out, our taxes, bonuses for the employees and everything like that, the profit stays in the company. We just keep saving it. So we are prepared if, something happens down the line and we start slowing down. Our goal is not going to be to just start laying off staff.
Right. Have a little war chest.
Have a little war chest and keep it going.
Plan.
And I do think that, if there is going to be a recession, which there will be at some point, and it'll slow down, maybe some of these smaller companies will fold. Maybe they'll close.
And there'll be opportunity for
There'll be more opportunity. And we'll be the most well-known company out there. So they'll know to come to us,
The plan works long term. That's all, Darius. It's been super fun talking to you. I'm going to move to our rapid fire round of questions. Before I do that, though, as you guys are growing and you're out there marketing, who's your white whale customer? Is there a customer out there where you're like, man, these guys just give us a chance, man. Yeah. Throw me a couple parts. Like, we're going to show you Lynn Welding's the best welding company in the world.
Sure. It's not really so much the customer as it is the end user in our business. So the next approval that we would really like to get is Airbus, because Airbus is, now they have assembly plants in the country.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of local machine shops and fabricators that are supplying this. I think it's in Alabama or South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, but Airbus is going to invest a lot of money into the U.S. in the next 5 years, from what I hear, and I'd like to get that welding approval. So again, if we get an Airbus RFQ, we will offer $25,000 of free welding services to help us get that approval.
So if anyone's out there and they want $25,000 of free welding, all they got to do is help you get an Airbus approval.
That's it.
And they're also going to get a package. They also get a care package. Exactly. Nice, very nice. All right, cool. Darius, this was great. Let me move to our rapid fire round of questions. Red Sox or Yankees?
The Yankees.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Starbucks.
I may have to end this interview right now and delete it. Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic.
iPhone or Android?
Android.
Sports car or SUV?
Both.
Both. Oh, man. Yeah. Love it. If you could do anything other than what you're doing today for Lynn Welding, what would you do? Disco polo?
No. Honestly, I would do what you're doing, man. I love learning from other people of how they got to where they are. I love learning marketing techniques, and I would love to interview business owners for a living and just learn from them, write a book about it. Yep. That's the kind of stuff that I love. So yeah, I could see myself doing that.
All right. Well, speaking of books, what's your favorite business book?
Elon Musk. It's not so much a business book, but it's how he got to where he is. And I love his business ways and tactics. I think it's really impressive.
Is it his background or his tactics that is what kind of like,
I like his
combo?
Tactics. I like who he is as a manager. He built a rocket from it was on paper at month 0, and 24 months later it was on launch pad. If you told NASA to do that, it'd be 15 years.
Right.
So the way he got it done in 24 months, that's what I love.
It's impressive. Yeah, action. That's great. What's one thing that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think really helped propel you?
I would say never judge a book by its cover. I did a trade show one time in Hartford, and it was like 4:55. The trade show was closing at 5. And all the other guys are closing up their booths, putting everything away. And I was like, I'm just going to wait. And this young kid comes around the corner. I had no idea that it was a UTRC buyer for United Technologies Research Center. He was young. He was wearing jeans. He looked like he just came out of school. And he never even told me he was the buyer.
Okay.
But he came up to me and just started asking me questions, and I talked to him just like I would anyone else. Yes, sir. How are you, sir? Doing the professional talk that you would at the trade shows. And then he emailed me the next day. He goes, hey, you know what? I got to tell you something. He goes, I walked around that trade show. I talked to a couple other people, and they were like, get out of my booth, punk. They had no idea that I'm a UTRC buyer. He's like, I'm going to contact you tomorrow, and I want to meet with you because you're the only guy that showed me respect and treated me like I wanted to be treated. And his name was Adam Musil from UTRC. So we became great friends, and never judged a book by its cover, because I had no idea. You would have never thought that this guy was a buyer for UTRC.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good lesson learned. And then our last kind of hot take question: what's one thing you've learned later in your career or later in your life that you wish you had known earlier? What do you want young Darius to know?
I would say it's kind of funny, but sometimes when you have to separate in business, you have to let someone go.
Yeah.
Do it in a nice way, because 2 years later, they might be the purchasing manager for your customer. Yeah.
All right. Be nice even on the way out the door.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I've heard someone say you want to treat someone on the way out the way you treated them on the way in.
Yeah.
Hopefully we treated them nicely on the way in. That's really great. Darius, if people wanted to learn more about Lynn Welding, they want to talk to you, learn about the business, learn what you guys can do, what's the best way to find you guys?
LynnWelding.com is our website, and
LYNN
LYNN Welding, one word. Yep. And you can just take a look at their website, our services, everything's on there. And if you have any questions or anything like that, you can just pick up the phone, call, and ask for me.
That's right. Sounds good. And we'll have the link to the website and phone number in all the podcasts and the YouTube notes. So anybody wants to check it out there, they can find you. And last question of the day. Given everything we talked about today, and we've been around the block on a bunch of different stuff, what's the one key thing you think listeners could take away? If you were a listener to hear this today, you're like, well, this one thing they should walk away from, I think really drove some value. What was that?
Yeah, man, there's so much, maybe a couple of real quick things. Sure. I think that America's land of opportunity. And I think that you can do a lot of stuff in this country. All you have to do is have a plan, a vision, work towards it. And there's really no way to lose in this country. I truly believe that. Even today, people said that it was different 50 years ago. Today, it's the same way. And the other thing is treat everybody around you really well. Take care of them. As you grow, make sure everybody else around you grows.
Absolutely. That's awesome. For me, I think something that you talked about, which is super impressive, and I think people could do a lot better to think about it a lot more, is the way you guys communicate effectively with the team at Lynn Welding. The way, a lot of people could take the impression of there's no reason that everyone in the shop needs to know why you bought a robot. It's your money. It's your business. They should just trust you. Or why should you give them feedback so often? Why should you take so much pride in seeing them grow? But I think that people could learn a lot to walk in your shoes and see what you've seen and do what you do, because that communication with folks and helping them be part of the team, that's what drives a company forward, and taking pride in your employees and helping them grow the way that you do. And the way, like, just talking to you and seeing it, like, viscerally, I can see how much pride you take in helping them grow. It's super special. I think it's what makes you guys so successful. And I think all of us could do well to learn from that and grow from that. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, Darius.
You're welcome,
Pleasure, dude.
I appreciate it.
All right. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I definitely want your feedback and hope you subscribe. But what I want the most is to build a community where we learn and grow with each other. I hope you're getting a lot of value out of the time we're spending together. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.